Welcome back to our video tutorial series on getting started with landmarks. If you've been watching the last few videos, I walked you through how to essentially either from scratch create a new scene and get it ready to set up experiments in landmarks, or to move any existing Unity scene. So if you have the environment but you were using it maybe previously with different code or not at all, you can easily get that set up to work with landmarks in a short period of time. So if you've been following along, you have this nice little arena environment here with different colored walls and flooring and pillars and these 5 target objects that we've placed throughout the environment here. And so now comes the easy part, but before we do that, some of you may have had issues with lighting in your last scene. So if you were having issues where some of the walls were too dark, the way to get around that is, if you don't already have the lighting tab over here by the inspector, go up to Window, choose Rendering, Lighting Settings, and just go down here and make sure that Auto Generate is checked. And if you check that, that should fix the issue and your environment should look more like the one here in this video. Alright, so as I mentioned, now we're kind of onto the easy part here. We've worked on our environment, we've got our targets set up, and now we really just want to make an experiment out of this. We have an environment to navigate, we have targets to navigate to, so let's navigate to them. So if you remember, I showed you the two main parts of the landmarks prefab here are the environment and the experiment, and now that we're done with the environment, we'll go into the experiment. We don't really have to do anything with the player controllers here or the character components. That's all kind of behind the scenes stuff. One thing you can change is if you go to LM Experiment here in the inspector, you can do things like change which player controller you're using, but we're just going to stick with keyboard and mouse here. So how do we add tasks? How do we get a task for our participants to do? So you can see here that in the structure of this, within the experiment, we have the character components and then the LM timeline, so the timeline of our experiment. So there's some stuff that'll get called automatically to initialize that, and then this is just the message that'll show up that says welcome to the experiment. You can change that here, but really I just want to show you how Landmarks comes pre-made, ready to have navigation task components dropped into it. So right now if we hit play, there's nothing in tasks here, so it's just going to give us a begin and end message. Let's go ahead and click play here. Enough, we get a welcome and then a thank you, and then it'll disappear. If this was a build, it would automatically close. So now let's start adding tasks here. How do we do that? In the project window, if you go into the landmarks package, go into prefabs here, you're going to see a bunch of prefabs, hopefully more as time goes on, that start with all caps task. Any of those can be dragged and dropped onto the tasks game object in the landmarks timeline, and those will work out of the box. So let's try one here. Why don't we try learn targets, because that's a good task for starting off an experiment. So if we go and just drag and drop that right there, you can see it becomes a child there, and we hit play, and now all those target objects that we placed in our LM environment's target objects container there are now part of this orientation. So we added in the gray rectangular prism when we were building the environment, and so that'll actually be automatically included now in the list. Okay, and that is that. Now if you want to do more iterations, like you want them to go through all the targets maybe 3 or 4 times, say, you can go in here and you can change that. That's maybe for a different video specific to the learn targets task, but just to say these are also modifiable in the inspector. You don't need code to change like how many blocks of a task that you're going to do. Alright, so we've got that task. Let's go ahead and remove that. Let's say we want a different task. Why don't we do a navigation task, because that's kind of our bread and butter in this field. Alright, so now we got a navigation task dropped in there. Again, we'll see that it automatically will have us navigate to each of our stores, or not stores here, geometric targets random order. You can see it automatically configures that it needs to give instructions and then queue locations. You can see you have to find correct target. There we go. Alright, and that'll continue on through there. Again, this one has different things you can modify requiring no code. For example, you can have the targets be hidden for a certain period of time, as you might see in like a Morse water maze task. You can have them hidden at the start. You can have non-targets hidden. And then similarly, you can change how many repetitions the task will do, all those types of things. Let's take a look at one more task from our demo scene before we put it all together. And that one is the JRD task here. So again, just drag and drop it onto tasks. Hit play. Normally you would have had to learn these environments, but just to show you how drag and drop it is, this task is all set and ready. So it gives us the instructions, and now we're doing pointing tasks. And if you remember, it's doing all the calculations for us. So when we output that, we don't have to write any MATLAB or R or Python code to figure out the trigonometry here. I've done all that for you already. So you can go ahead, and I think it's set to 24 trials here, and whenever it finishes. This task, just briefly on customization, if you want, you can have a different number of trials there. If you want, you can, so the compass was being reset to a random position up for each trial, you can change that and it'll be set to 0 if you uncheck that box. Simple as that. One cool thing I do want to mention in this video though is I've got this set up so that it will also automatically do the scene and orientation dependent pointing task, which is another common, more egocentric pointing task. So you can see here when we have it set there, you don't have to do anything different except select the different task, and now it has you orient before giving you the compass and asking you to point. Notice it's still doing all the computations for you just like it was doing in the other trials, but now it's an SOP task. So that's just to show you some of the flexibility and versatility of landmarks. It's as easy as that. You just drag and drop. So let's go ahead and just remove that out. Now let's just put it all together. So let's say we want to learn targets, drop it there. And then we want to have them navigate. So we put that here. And then we want to have them do a JRD task. So we put it there. And let's say that we want to have 2 blocks. So if we go into tasks and we say that's how many blocks are in an experiment, you change repeat to 2. We want to have them do learn targets 1 time. Let's leave it at that. Navigation, let's just leave that one as it is. And then JRD, let's set it to reset to 0 and be a JRD task. So then we'll have 2 blocks of that. Alright, so let's just run through it one more time and see how that goes, and just how easy it was to add those tasks to a functioning experiment now. Alright, so we're learning targets. Bear with me while this loads here. So we get through all of our targets one time. Now we're going to navigate. So other than the differences between 2 videos ago that I showed you, we did a different flooring and a different color for the pillars in the environment, and then we added in this gray rectangular prism here. But other than that, the function is essentially the same here, and that is just to say that even it only took us maybe 25 minutes total to build this environment and add tasks to it, and now we're running an experiment that we created completely from scratch that was similar to, but could have been vastly different from the one that I showed you leading into this section of the tutorials. So So we just got a couple more to go to here, just to verify that the whole kit and caboodle works together. Alright. There we go. And on to the pointing task. You can see now I changed that checkbox, so now our compass resets to 0 if you want to do it that way. It really depends on how you want to analyze the data or operationalize the task. So I'm just going to cruise through here. So you can see then, if we cruise too fast as I did, now we're on to the second block there. And so then whenever it finishes, your experiment will just end on its own, and then you'll be able to go and get that data. So I guess as long as I've got you here, I'll just show you real quick where that data would go from the editor. You can change where that happens. Alright, so that just got written right here. When you're in the editor, we don't need to save special names, so it just gets saved for right now. Alright, and then we'll cover this maybe in later videos, so you can see we get a lot of data in these outputs. But we have an R package in development that's actually going to go through and find these tags where we actually put data into what can easily be transferred into a CSV or tab or comma delimited file here. And so each trial can log itself out from within landmarks, and you get all that information. And so if we go down until we get a JRD here, you can see we get all of our JRD task information, including the target we're pointing to, the orientation we are, what the correct answer is, where the arrow was when we started. So yeah, it's that easy. This video ended up being a little longer, but really it could have been 30 seconds just showing you that we go in here to the prefabs and drag any task onto tasks, and they should work right out of the box. Alright, so thanks for keeping along with us here in the Getting Started with Landmarks. Hopefully we'll have some more getting started or intermediate videos in the future for you.